Good afternoon and welcome to today's Board of Elections and Registration scheduled meeting. Thanks everyone for coming out and braving the cold. Great to see you all. We're going to get started with the roll call.
Good afternoon, board members. When I call your name, please respond by saying here. Vasu Abhiraman.
Here.
Travis Bowden.
Here.
Gail Lee.
Here.
Dele Loman.
Here.
Carly Swift.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I would like to make a motion to to amend it.
Okay, what's your?
Okay, for an item of discussion, a compliance with SB 189's restrictions on residence addresses.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so, sorry, did we get a first? Did someone, let's just get I don't think we got when I made the motion, I needed to get someone to approve it, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So moved.
so you moved it, then we added, you made an amendment, and then you seconded, just for the records. Okay, so all in favor of, well, sorry. We're still in discussion. So we're going to add discussion item on compliance with SB 189's registration at non-residential addresses. We also need to, under items for decision, I'm going to ask the office to weigh in on this. Under number 6, item C, my understanding is that we need to move, we're going to be moving the challenges.
We'll just leave it all there.
Oh, okay, disregard, okay. So we're fine, so Ms. Loman.
May I ask a question about the amendment?
Yes,
Is the department prepared to have a conversation on that? Okay.
okay, all right, so we have a motion properly seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, okay, so agenda has been approved with the additional notes for discussion. Now, we are going to certify first and adjourn and come back to any open items. Can I get a motion to approve the October 9th and the November 7th special call meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, public comments.
Public comment may be made in person or by submitting an email of one printed page or less to electionspubliccct@DeKalbCountyGA.gov, which must be received between 35 and 5 minutes before the scheduled start of the meeting. The body of your email must include your first and last name. By submitting an email for public comment, you agree to have your name and email broadcast on Ustream and entered into the record or the minutes. The DeKalb Board of Registration reserves the right at the board's sole discretion to enter your email. At the sole discretion to add your email to the record or minutes without reading any of into the broadcast, or to read all or a portion of your email into the record or minutes. All public comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Abusive, profane, or derogatory language, holding up signs, clapping, yelling, standing, laying in aisles to show support or opposition to a speaker will not be permitted, but a show of hands or quietly standing in place will be permitted to show your support or opposition to a speaker's position.
Thank you. First up, we have Betsy Shackelford.
I worked the polls on Election Day at a big early voting site. Because many people have gotten used to early voting, they have no clue about the notion of a home precinct they must use on Election Day. We had to turn away as many people for being out of precinct as were able to vote there. We need to do better. California sends voters voting guides with all sorts of useful info before an election. Surely we can send the voters of DeKalb a cheerful, eye-catching postcard, not just a boring little precinct card that tells them clearly about the difference between early voting and election day and what their precinct is. But, oops, our voter-hostile legislature requires that if a piece of mail from the election office is returned, the voter must be marked inactive, a lousy rule with a purpose to kick people off voting rolls, even if the fault is with the post office or other circumstance. Many have suggested big voting centers that could in essence replicate early voting. I am wary of this concept, as the most vulnerable voters might have to travel much farther than they do today and could encounter long lines. This needs to be solved. There needs to be a way to inform voters about Election Day precincts without the possible repercussion of getting ruled inactive.
Grant, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Janet Grant, and I'm a resident of DeKalb County and an area poll manager responsible for the election day polling locations in the city of Decatur. As I stated to you back in July, as you prepared to certify the runoff election, I'm here to ask you again to fulfill your legal responsibilities today with the certification of the November 4th municipal general and special election. The Georgia Court of Appeals ruled last year that this is not a discretionary act for members of boards of election in Georgia, and unlike in our last municipal election, when 2 members of this board, without explanation, voted not to certify, you must fulfill your legal responsibilities today. Second, I urge you to find against the 6 challenges brought forward by Robert Ashe. While these challenges are more in keeping with what might be appropriate in this forum, citing apparent personal knowledge, these are exactly the kind of situations that are addressed by routine list maintenance in Georgia. I'm concerned that this board and the VRE staff have had to deal with this in the middle of a very busy election and now preparing for a runoff. Lastly, I want to commend this board and the VRE leadership and staff for a successful election. In keeping with the department motto of excellence in elections, each election, our poll workers and voters are experiencing the results of continuous improvement. I personally had a number of poll managers and workers share feedback about improvements in training they had experienced this election. We also saw significant improvements in the overall staffing process, the Tuesday night drop-off procedures, and area manager positions were fully staffed this election, allowing each of us to spend quality time in our own polls in what turned out to be a very busy election. Thank you.
Marla Tepper.
Good afternoon. My name is Marla Tepper. I'm a resident of Decatur and proud to have served as a poll worker in multiple elections, including the most recent one. Thank you for your ongoing work to provide our county with fair elections, as evident in the last election. As a poll worker, I observed a well-run election. The turnout, about 31%, was roughly twice the usual level for municipal elections, which is certainly something to celebrate. Increasing voter turnout, along with continuing to run smooth, well-organized elections, as this board has done, should remain the board's focus, not meritless voter challenges designed to undermine the democratic process. I also want to note that we posted the Secretary of State's new survey at the polls to gather voters' feedback about their voting experience. I think that kind of survey is very important. I have 2 suggestions. First, please ask the Secretary of State to modify the survey sign so that there's space for the poll location name. That would make it easier for voters to complete. Second, it would be helpful to share results with trainers and with poll managers and workers to enable us to continue to improve the voter experience. Thank you again for your continued service to DeKalb County voters.
Cheryl Dudley.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Cheryl Dudley. I don't really have too much to say, but I wanted to say something today because this will be my last meeting this year because, well, hopefully, if the airlines start flying again, I'll be out of the country with the December meeting. Again, I reemphasize what the ladies that said that came before me. I want to thank you for your service to the county. Thankfully, again, as a voter activist, I think it was great that the turnout was a lot better in these areas than it was in the rest of the state, especially concerning one of the elections where a couple of people, again, where the democratic process finally came through. Hopefully you will continue your service to the democracy that is here. Again, that's what democracy is all about, people being able to vote, not going back to a time 50, 60 years ago where people, literally fought and died in order to be able to vote. Again, I hope that I wish you would have some influence over the State Board of Elections because, again, thank goodness for Mark Elias' democracy docket. He's always posting things that Georgia is doing. We have a lot of disabled people, older people, there is no reason in the world to do away with absentee voting. That again, I actually called for some folks that ran in a city election. That one didn't work out, but you can't, again, cheaters are reapers. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Beach.
Thanks, Michael Beach. I'm an assistant poll manager here in DeKalb. Thanks again to all the staff and everything. Actually, the latest thing was a Sunday night refresher Zoom call for all the assistant managers and managers. It was great. That's what you want because you've had training a month and a half ago. So again, I'd really encourage that to continue. I actually wanted to change the subject a little bit and just say we're almost at the end of an election cycle. We're going to start getting on a roll to be changing all the laws and voter challenges, voter rolls, everything else. I would like us to talk to each other, link arms, and really come up against actually what in my mind is the most insidious thing in elections right now, and it's legal. It's called rigging or gerrymandering, and I would encourage us to, in a bipartisan fashion, let's stop gerrymandering in Georgia, because frankly, it sucks. This is where the legislators in our state house have picked their constituents instead of constituents picking their legislators. It is a legal way of rigging elections, and in every survey done in Georgia and nationally, it's a bipartisan issue in which everybody agrees we shouldn't be doing this, and let's do something different. And so, Republican colleagues over here, let's link arms. We actually have an organization, Fair Districts Georgia. Let's get together and fight this stuff because, frankly, we're trying to get our voice heard, and very little competition exists in Georgia right now in races because of all the gerrymandering. They've taken our voice, and so let's change that. And we can do that together instead of fighting each other over stuff that doesn't necessarily make the same difference as unrigging our elections. Thank you.
Catherine Gaunt.
I don't think I need a mic because my voice carries.
And we're streaming, you need the mic. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Catherine Gaunt. I'm born in DeKalb County, lived here most of my life. I'm a poll worker. I wanted to point out that in my precinct, we had the statewide polls close at 7 o'clock, and the city of Atlanta closed at 8 o'clock. That was decided the day before by court order. So we had to use paper ballots for that last hour, and it took our voters quite a while after we got past the initial confusion of, why can't I vote in a state election? So putting that aside, just the mechanics of voting on paper ballots took quite a while. And I want to underscore that because there's all these movements for paper ballots. If you don't like long lines, if we convert to paper ballots, the lines will be unbelievable. Then someone else just made a comment about the absentee voters with the elderly. We had elderly voters that had to walk probably 2 city blocks to get into our precinct because of the parking situation. And one lady said, could you please put some chairs out there for us? It really drove home to me the fact that this elderly lady came to the polls to vote when she could have done an absentee ballot and not had to go through what she did to exercise her right to vote. So I would encourage you to think about that and think about that constituency when absentee ballots and mail-in ballots are considered. Thank you.
Beth Ann Frillman.
Hello. I just want to address something that was said at last week's pre-certification meeting. And it's sort of precise, so I'm going to read my comments, which I don't usually do. First, let me say that I agree with Ms. Swift and Mr. Abiraman that pre-certification meetings are not useful. And nothing that I say from here forth sort of makes it seem like they are. They are an unnecessary burden on the departments, and certification is not discretionary for board members based on the law and the court's interpretation of the law. So Ms. Lee said something in the last board meeting that I just think needs to be addressed as a citizen of the county. She erroneously stated that the pre-certification meetings were put in place to identify any evidence of stuffing the ballots. This is simply not true. I was at those hearings where this law was put in place. It was to give board members more information on the process of certification during the process that happens after the board, after the election, and in no way was to address stuffing of ballots. But that was not the most alarming statement. Here's the most alarming statement as a citizen. Ms. Lee, going through the early list of the issues that are a normal part of post-election work, asked questions about wrong ballots being issued. She looked at evidence for ballot stuffing, which there wasn't and never has been. And then she stated that she wasn't concerned about negative numbers because that meant there were more voters than ballots. So I don't think there were more voters than ballots. It's just part of the process of post-election work, and I have great faith in the department to do the work that they need to do. But it reveals a bias that somehow everyone's ballot being counted is less important than
Thank you.
any of the other work.
Okay, thank you everyone for your public comment. We really appreciate it. We're going to move into our items for discussion and decision. The purpose of this meeting, one of the primary purposes is to certify the election. So we're going to start with the post-election report. We're going to move into certification, adjourn so that we can sign the necessary documents, and then we'll move back into the meeting. So Ms. Smith, can you provide us the post-election report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So as everyone knows, a lot goes into facilitating a smooth election. And my public affairs division put together a quick video just highlighting our department's pre-election preparation and the strong turnout for the recent election that we will present for certification today. The video is just a few seconds, not minutes long, and it reflects the collaborative work of our teams within the department. We'll see some of our poll workers for our pre-election activities, and it's just a beautiful snapshot of what goes on to prepare for game day, which is just one day, right? Our work is all year long. So with that, if you could play the video. Most of that was Sunday pickup. And so our poll managers and area managers know that that's a familiar view of what happens on Sunday before Election Day. So again, I just want to always thank our poll workers, our area managers, our poll watchers, my staff, and everyone who puts all of their effort and energy into facilitating a smooth election. We could not do this work without you, so, and my board. So thank you. Okay, so on page 9 of your packets, we'll just skip to page 11. I will go through some of the highlights from the statewide, special, and general municipal election. Page 12, we'll go ahead to that page. You will see the turnout for this election, 487,913 were the registered voters for this period. 152,639 ballots were cast. Overall, the turnout was 31.28%. Election day numbers are reflected there. 94,580 ballots were cast on Election Day. 56,492 during early voting. 1,455 absentee by mail, and 112 provisional ballots were cast during this election. On slide 13, you'll see that the turnout was more than twice the previous busiest municipal election, which took place in 2021. You see there that 16,585 ballots were cast on Election Day and 16,585 were early voting, 46,107 were Election Day. So for a total of 71,017 ballots. Well, this year we had 56,492 ballots cast during early voting and 94,580 on Election Day for a total of 152,639 ballots cast in total. Early voting turnout was about 3 times the recent average, and Election Day turnout was double. Slide 14. As always, Memorial Drive continues to be the most popular location, but turnout was high around the county, with 2,552 voters on the last day here at Memorial Drive, and that was the second busiest early voting day in our history, including presidential elections. So very, very busy. On slide 15, you'll see absentee by mail numbers. We had a total of 1,455 ballots accepted out of the 1,469 received. So there you'll see that 14 were rejected or spoiled. Slide 16 is an overview of the absentee by mail, a little in detail. For the provisional absentee ballots, you'll see the breakdown there. A total of 93 were received, 59 cured of those provisional ballots received, and the rejected absentee ballots on the right, in the right column, you'll see there were a total of 8, and 2 of those were cured before the deadline. And you see the various reasons for the rejections: missing signature, incorrect ID, or missing ID. On slide 17, we'll have the election day numbers there. Again, election day turnout was unusually high, especially in Atlanta, the cities of Atlanta and Decatur. 2,348 voted at our neighborhood church location on election day, which is likely the highest turnout in county history, including presidential elections. Election day numbers on slide 18 are our precincts. We still have 191 precincts. This election, we had 152 polling locations. We had 1,022 poll workers at the end of the tally, so over 1,000 poll workers. The equipment tested and deployed: 347 poll pads, 1,276 touchscreens, and 167 scanners tested and deployed. Slide 19 reflects the election day provisionals. Out of precincts, we had a total of 137. 107 of those were accepted. Registration in question, we had a total of 9. 3 of those were accepted. Missing IDs, we had a total of 4. 1 was accepted. And other, we had 1, and that was accepted. You'll see that, again, a total of 152 election day provisionals, 112 of those were accepted, and a total of 40 were rejected. Just to note, 42 Atlanta voters cast ballots between the hours of 7 and 8 p.m. on election day. Those did not count in the provisional numbers. They counted as election day ballots. And so the process for that was that when the vote review panel received those ballots, they were all duplicated with just the City of Atlanta races on them, and those were the races that were tallied. And that's the end of the post-election report. I can answer questions, or we can go
Perfect.
next.
Are there any questions, or you want her to continue? Okay, any questions? All right, we'll continue.
So that's the decision.
Yes, so we're going to move into items for decision with the certification of the Municipal General and Special Election Public Service Commission, which starts on page 22.
Yes, thank you. So what you have before you for consideration are the unofficial and incomplete totals for the general election in DeKalb County, which took place on November 4th, 2025. And the summary includes all contests, all districts, all tabulators, and all counting groups.
Okay, are there any questions? I'll start with Mr. Bowden. Are there any questions?
I have no questions at this time.
Okay, Ms. Lohman.
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Lee.
I've looked over the numbers and compared it to the pre-certification. It looks like everything, all the races are basically the same, none changed. The numbers varied slightly, but no, there was no changes in who won and all that. Am I correct?
That's correct.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Abaraman.
A quick question. Director Smith, you noted the increase in turnout between 2021 and 2025. 2021, did we have a statewide race?
There was a county-wide race, but not a statewide race.
Okay. Was it the SPLOST? Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And I will also mention that we did note throughout early voting that over 50%, and I think it was 60% at times, were unincorporated DeKalb, which only had the PSC race. So there was no other municipal election on that ballot.
Got it.
So that's important to note.
Okay, and I don't have any questions either. So we can move forward with certifying. So can I get a motion?
Motion to recess to certify the election?
No, we have to vote first.
Sorry. Motion for-
Can I get a motion to certify?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now we need a motion to adjourn so that we can recess. Oh, a motion to recess. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will be in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. Can I get a motion to resume? What is?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we resume these proceedings, if that's in order.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Okay, so let's go back to items for discussion. We will have a discussion of the compliance with SB 181, and then we're going to move back into items for decision to finalize the remaining items for decision. Okay, so the discussion piece is on compliance with SB 181's requirement around non-residential addresses. So I am going to Miss Lee, does that accurately reflect?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Director Smith, can you provide an overview of the department's compliance?
What was is it 180?
180.
189.
189,
Yes.
my apologies.
Is there a specific question around this, that we can answer?
It's based on 217A to C, which has been added to the code. Shall I read it?
That would be great.
Okay. Proof of ownership or rental of a post office box or private mailbox service address within a particular jurisdiction shall not constitute sufficient grounds to establish a person's residency within that particular jurisdiction.
Okay, yes. And so while that language is new, the process for our office remains the same. If we receive a registration that is a non-residential address, the registration team sends a letter to that individual informing them that they registered or are attempting to register with a non-residential address. And so that process is still the same. And if we find in our voter rolls that there are individuals registered at mailboxes or other non-residential addresses, then we also send them a letter letting them know that they have registered with a non-residential address and we need an update from them in order for them to stay on the rolls.
Do we give them a deadline to respond?
Yes, there is a deadline. Is it 30 days? So that's the inactive 40-day clock, which is 30 days, but it's a 30-day clock with, I guess, a cushion for mailing, which equals 40 days. It averages as 40 days.
And what happens if they don't respond or they don't change their address?
Then they go into that whole process of inactive, and then it's the two non-general elections and the thing that we just went through with the state, and that's a stateless maintenance activity.
Okay. In the July 30th meeting of the State Election Board, there was extensive discussion on SB 189. And Gwinnett County described what they were doing with it, and they sent out a letter and telling people they had 30 days to change and advised them that they could be subject, if they did not change their address to a legitimate residential address, that they would be subject to possible challenge and removal. Of course, they told them they could update it on the My Voter page or contact the office. And then the 30 days, at the time of that discussion, the 30 days hadn't expired yet. I've talked to someone in Gwinnett County since then, and after the expiration of the date, their BRE brought to the board the names and registrations of the people that had not updated their information. And my understanding is they had a 228 meeting and removed the people. Now, 228 meetings is not something we've had very much of here since I've been observing the meetings in the last 3 years. And I'd like to read, let's see, 228. Great. A and D, there we go. It's 228 A and D. The Board of Registrars of each county or municipality shall have the right and shall be charged with the duty of examining from time to time the qualifications of each elector of the county or municipality whose name is entered upon the list of electors and shall not be limited or stopped by any action previously taken. And then in D, it says, if the right of any person to remain on the list of electors is questioned by the registrars, they shall give such person at least 3 days written notice of the date, time, and place of a hearing to determine such right. And then it goes on about delivering it by first class, et cetera. And I know you would be asking, well, what's the basis of removal? And I believe you can find that in 220E, 220E. If an applicant submits false information, the Board of Registrars shall reject the application and shall refer the application to the district attorney of the county for criminal prosecution. Okay. If the false information is not discovered until after the applicant's application has been approved and the applicant's name added to the list of electors, the giving of such false information shall be cause to challenge the applicant's right to remain on the list of electors, which, if sustained, shall result in such applicant's name being removed from the list and the application being submitted to the district attorney of the county for criminal prosecution. Now, Gwinnett wasn't talking about submitting anybody to the district attorney for prosecution, and neither am I. We've let this go on for a long time. But it's a much quicker method than having to wait 2 more federal election cycles. And if the information is false to begin with, it should be, it should have been rejected at the beginning, and it wasn't. So once we find it, it seems like we should be able to reject it. We have citizens in the past that have brought challenges on this issue. Now, the legislature has weighed in, and Dr. Johnston, the vice chair of the state election board, in that meeting cautioned that, quote, at some point there's an expectation that the county registrar will be held accountable for not addressing this, unquote. So the pressures are building, and I think as a board we should be looking at possible 228 meeting.
Okay.
I'm open for hearing
Well,
from you.
Did you have anything to add? No?
I don't think there are any other
Yeah, I don't think there are any questions for you. Ms. Lawman?
Thank you. Trying to decide where to start here. So, couple of things. I guess where I'll start is in maybe correcting an assumption that I heard from Ms. Lee, that if someone registers or attempts to register with a P.O. box or other non-residential address, that is false information. There are multiple valid and legal reasons why someone might use a non-residential address in order to exercise their right to vote. We had an in-depth discussion about this. It would have been sometime during my second term I believe, on this board several years ago. And we did not have a satisfactory answer from the Secretary of State or the State Elections Board about a process that is consistent across all counties to allow individuals who may be experiencing homelessness, who may be victims of domestic violence and need to shield their addresses, or for some other reason have a legal and valid justification for using a non-residential address in order to exercise their right to vote. I obviously was not on the board at the time that SB 189 was adopted, and so I was not paying close attention to the details of that process. But from what I've heard, they still have not addressed how the county can allow all citizens who have the right to vote to be able to exercise that right to vote safely, whether or not they have a permanent or stable residence, and in such a way that is not going to threaten them in any other way. So I guess that's just what I wanted to say. I don't think that having a 228 hearing is justified, and I think that there are still a lot more questions that we have asked the state to answer that still are not answered, that should not fall on us to resolve. That's it.
Mr. Bowden?
I think, and I lack my colleagues' experience on this board, I'm relatively new to it, but I think that all here might agree that it flies in the face of a secure election, and I'm mindful of the fact that some individuals might need to use a post office box to shield their location. I appreciate that. But if an address is not verifiable and a person cannot prove their residency, I would argue that a post office box could be used to undermine an election in theory. Now, how often that happens, I can't speak to that, but I know it does happen. And I feel that by using a post office box, someone could very easily come to DeKalb County and vote when they are not a resident of DeKalb County. We may not be able to solve that today, but I mean, I think that's an incumbent thing for all here to consider.
Thank you. Mr. Abaraman?
Absolutely nothing from me.
Okay. Just 2 points. I agree with Ms. Lohman that I'm not supportive of a ad hoc 238 hearing. I just want to clearly confirm that from the office that you cannot register currently if you have a non-residential address. In the event you have already registered, that does not mean you're not able to vote. It doesn't mean that you're not qualified to vote in DeKalb County. It also means that you are required to you will be updating your address, and that there is a process in place that has been put in place by the state of Georgia, the Secretary of State's office, that requires a voter to go into an inactive status, and they can update their registration with their correct address. For me, I believe this was when both Ms. Lohman and I were on the board. There was a challenge before this board of an elector who was registered, I believe, at a non-residential address that lived in DeKalb County. He was a former veteran. And there was a request to remove him from the roll. There is no instance where I would have voted in that instance to remove someone from the roll who is a valid resident. There is a process in place. Now, we can have a disagreement on what a quote-unquote clean roll is versus what a clean roll is not. But for me, you have a fundamental right to be able to vote, period. And so while I understand that we have a disagreement around what the list maintenance should be, I think our core position should be to allow and ensure everyone has the right, the fundamental right to vote. So, but I just want to clarify those things for the record, that you cannot register with a non-residential address since the passage of this Senate Bill 189. I'm going to go back to Ms. Lee. So did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I do want to point out that we do have a vote safe program in Georgia where people who have domestic problems and that sort of thing, where they're, I'm not sure how it shows up on the rolls, but it somehow their address is not, it's masked or just different. It's not their real residential address. And so that covers them. Now, as far as the homeless, yes, we have a problem figuring out what to do with the homeless. And it seems to me there should be a process that if someone calls in response to getting the letter and says, I don't have a court order, so I don't qualify for the Vote Safe program, but I can't use my address because I am in danger. That you could have a special address that you put on the public roll, but actually have something in the background where that person gets directed to the correct polling place. But anybody can get a mailbox. They could live in Alaska and go online and look up virtual mailboxes and pay $25 and vote in Decatur. Say they reside in Decatur.
Ms. Lemon?
I think that sounds like a possibly workable procedure. However, we do not have the authority to establish that. That is the responsibility of the State Elections Board and the Secretary of State's office, which, as I mentioned, we asked several years ago for them to do, and it appears that they still have not yet done that. So I think that we all want to ensure that the individuals who vote are doing so rightfully. However, I think that solving this problem is not going to work when you approach it from the assumption that there is rampant voter fraud, which has not ever been proven. If we approach it with the goal of ensuring that every citizen who is rightfully able to vote has access to the vote, then I think we will come up with a solution that actually works. But again, we cannot establish that process. So if the Vice Chair of the State Elections Board or whomever else has concerns about this, I would encourage them to fulfill their responsibility so that we can fulfill our responsibility at the county level.
Is there is there anything else that we have to add on this discussion?
I would like to just pass out the code references so you can look at it in your leisure time and consider it.
Okay, you can, yes, you want to pass those around? Yeah. Okay, so I think that still ends this part of the discussion, and let's move into items for decision. We have we have 3 remaining matters for decision. The first one is there is a request for a recount. Is that correct, Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think there's a note, there's nothing in the packet regarding that, so can you provide us the background?
Yes, I am looking for so there was a request for a recount for a Decatur race that fell within the threshold of when a recount can be requested, which is if the margin is less than half of a percentage point, individuals can request a recount. And so we are requesting approval to conduct the recount of that Decatur District 1 Post A race.
Okay. And this is the Commissioner District, or, yeah, Decatur City Commissioner, District A, District 2, Post A,
1.
District 1. Okay. All right, are there any questions?
Confirming that this request was made in accordance with everything it would need for legal compliance, and also requesting that we confirm that the result that we've already certified falls within the threshold for them to have that right to request a recount.
That's right. So based on the numbers that you just certified, the difference is less than half a percentage point, which is the threshold for the request.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, with that, I will ask for a motion to approve a recount of the Decatur City Commissioner District 1 Post A.
So moved.
Second.
Second, we got a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Okay, so the next item for decision, there are several potential, or several runoffs in the city of Atlanta and in, what is the other?
Stonecrest.
And in Stonecrest. So there's a Board of Education seat, and I believe a Stonecrest City Council seat. So we will need to approve advanced voting locations and times for that election. On page 40, you will see the recommendations. So just to give a little context, there are 4 early voting locations that have been recommended. The Memorial Office, Bessie Branham, which is a location in City of Atlanta, and Emory University, which is a location in City of Atlanta, and then Salem Panola Road, which is in Stonecrest. Ms. Smith, you were talking, so I just gave the context.
Yes. So there appears that we will have runoffs in for Atlanta's 7th City Council District and their 8th Board of Education District. Certification in Fulton is this afternoon, but we anticipate that they will certify those results and that those 2 seats will need to go into the runoff. And then we know that Stonecrest's 5th City Council District is going to need a runoff. So those 3 elections. Contest.
Okay. Are there any questions? I think I have one question on the dates. The 24th through the 20th, are we unable to have an absentee date the day after Thanksgiving? Did we confirm that?
Yes, we did confirm that.
That we cannot?
We cannot. So we'll have the Saturday and Sunday. The Saturday is the earliest that we can facilitate the early voting period. So we're off. Staff recommends that Saturday, Sunday, and through the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Okay, and that is because of the restrictions and state law about?
It's the holiday, of course, is the Thursday, and you can't have it after the day after a state holiday. And the last day would have been Friday, so that's the rule as well, that the Friday before an election is the last day for early voting. But because the Friday before this election is the day after a state holiday, we have to end on the Wednesday before the holiday.
Okay, Ms. Lohman.
Through the chair, Ms. Smith, I wonder if we're able to use the Stonecrest Library for the early voting location? Because that happens to be in District 5 where the runoff is happening, so it would be potentially in closer proximity to the residents.
I don't believe we were we did not have an agreement with the library for this year for Stonecrest. But we can reach out to them to see if we can utilize that facility. I know that we don't have cameras there, so we won't be able to have the drop box there. But if we can we make a call? Okay.
Thank
To
you.
see.
Ms. Lee?
Correct me if I'm wrong, please, but isn't it true that if a person didn't get 50% or plus one, that they would be in a runoff if there was more than two people? No.
It depends on the city's charter. There are some cities that have plurality and the others have majority. And so that is taken into consideration when you're thinking about the runoffs.
All right. Because I came up with 6, but that would make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the adding Stonecrest, which I agree with, could we add Stonecrest and keep Panola so that we can keep the mailbox at Panola? Could we add the Stonecrest Library so that we would have a total of 5?
Yes.
Would that work? Okay, all right, so then times, are there any issues with the times that were proposed? Or any questions? Okay. So what I'm hearing is there consensus around all of the locations with the possible addition of Stonecrest if it is available?
Yes.
Okay, so could we get a motion to adopt the proposed recommendations, adding Stonecrest if available?
So move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Okay.
Can I just perfect the record?
Oh,
The
thank you.
Friday after Thanksgiving is a state holiday.
Thank you. Okay. Which is why we're not able to have it as a date. Thank you so much for correcting that. Okay.
Madam
So-
Chair, I'd
yes.
like to make a motion before our next item for decision.
Mhm.
The motion is to hold a specially called meeting of the Board of Registration and Elections.
Hold on one moment.
Need to make a motion to add an item, Mr. Abiraman.
Okay. Motion to add an item to the agenda. And-
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. And then okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Now,
Okay, motion to hold a specially called meeting of the Board of Registration and Elections scheduled for 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, November 17th.
I'd second that.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, so then,
Madam Chair, you
Yes.
can move to your next item.
yes, so we're going to move to the challenges brought by Robert L. Ash III.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
Motion to defer the consideration of these challenges to our specially called meeting next Monday.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great.
Mr. Abiraman, I trust that is inherent in your motion is to have staff issue the proper notices associated with that, including the specially called meeting, publishing that, and delivering notice to those involved in the voter challenges.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for correcting the record. Is there a need for executive session?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Board comments. Mr. Bowden.
I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out today. It's always refreshing to see so many civic-minded folks all coming together in the face of election integrity and election security, especially after such a historic turnout. I know that we're all looking forward to seeing what 2026 brings, and I look forward to seeing you then. Take care.
Ms. Lohman?
Thank you to all of our poll workers who came and any who might be watching for a great job administering another election. And again, thank you to our staff. And that's it.
Ms. Lee?
I would like to thank Miss Ann, I didn't catch her last name, for your comments. I did realize after I left here that I had misspoken and that it was, I should have said, it's my assumption from the instructions that were given us, which said to look for more ballots than voters, that's what they were looking for. That was my assumption. I never saw it in print, but that seemed to be the point of the whole thing, because I sat down and said, well, why are we doing this? You know, and so, anyway, thank you for correcting me.
Mr. Abaraman?
Thank you to everybody who was involved in running a great election. This includes everybody who made public comment, especially those who worked as poll workers. This probably was my favorite set of public comments since I've been on the board. I do really, really love to hear from people who worked the most recent election, so would encourage y'all to keep observing the process keenly and then coming here to talk about it so that we can continue to iterate and improve upon what we have. There's actually a couple of things that were mentioned here. I'll be quick because I know some people are trying to get out of here. Totally hear the issues on early voting locations where people show up and have to be told that they can't actually vote there on election day. I used to work at a City of Atlanta location, it was Cohen Park, that was often in that exact situation. Another commenter made the observation that when you move to vote centers, there may be a drawback. I'm a huge supporter of the idea that this election system moves to vote centers, and I'm happy to talk about the possible drawbacks with anyone. Even if there are drawbacks, I think the advantages outweigh those drawbacks, and I wanted to go on the record to say that. I also wanted to make a comment. Somebody talked about paper ballots. I will say I don't necessarily believe that the process that many locations had to go through from 7 to 8 p.m., which is to issue provisional ballots to voters, is analogous to the kind of load that would be on poll workers if we move to a paper ballot system. And again, I'm happy to talk about that one-on-one to anyone here. But again, it's a very different process. The provisional oath, the out-of-precinct oath, it's cumbersome. I've done it myself many times, and I don't think it's going to be quite the same if we move to a paper ballot system. Not offering an opinion on that move, just saying I don't think that they're analogous situations. A lot more to possibly say. I even wanted to shout out Cheryl Dudley for wearing the purple outfit here. Purple's my favorite color. A lot more to say. A really rich set of public comments from people who know what they're talking about. Always appreciate that. Thank you.
What an act to follow. No, thank you everyone for coming. Trying to get you guys out here since we'll be back on Monday. So looking forward to seeing the crowd back bright and early, or not so bright, Monday, 4:30. See you then. Okay, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, aye.